Hello,
morning.
Raphael.
We're in West Africa.
Hello, Raphael. Good day to you. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you're most welcome to the inaugural edition of AFRAA SkyConnect for 2023. As always, SkyConnect brings you thought-provoking discussions with our carefully selected panelists. Today, as you can see on the screen, our guest is no other than the new Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, in the person of Madame Adeyemi Adefunke. Funke and I come a long way, as some of you may have known, and she's still trailblazing. In today's discussions, we are going to focus on her vision for AFCAC in the next couple of years. We're going to see, since AFCAC does not work in isolation, but works in tandem with stakeholders of this industry, how she intends to collaborate with these stakeholders to achieve maximum results for air transport connectivity on the continent. We're going to dive deep into the elephant she came to meet in the room, which is the single African air transport market, and whether she is going to ensure that this elephant gets out of the room or the elephant remains a white elephant, as many people or as many skeptics are already predicted. Then we are going to also look at safety and security, and I know a topic that is so passionate to Funke, gender diversity, before we take her final thoughts to conclude our discussions for today. We have all discussions to do within the space of 1 hour. So brevity and straight to the point will be our watchword. Ladies and gentlemen, as in previous sessions, you have opportunity to participate in the ongoing dialogue by either using the Q&A tab or the chat box to put in your questions or comments. And at the appropriate time, I'll visit those two handles and read out your comments. And if there are questions, then I pose them to Madame Funke for appropriate responses. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you are not speaking, please note that you can also, when we open the floor for questions and answers towards the end, you will have the opportunity to also ask questions directly by raising your hand. Without much ado, I would want to request all of you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 1 hour discussions and engagements with the new Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Authority, Civil Aviation Commission, Madame Adeyemi Adefunke. Adefunke, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Raphael. And let me start by wishing you a very happy new year and best wishes for the year ahead.
Thank you, and same to you and all the folks at AFCAC. Now,
Thanks to the team at AFRAA.
You joined AFCAC just a couple of months back. How are you settling in?
Well, thank you. It's been really interesting, I have to say. I took office on the 1st of September, following the appointment and election on the 15th of July, 2022. And I moved country. So not only did I start a new job, I also started a new experience and a new life in a new multicultural environment. So far, it's been very, very interesting. You know, I hit the ground running, and I mean that literally, because there were quite a number of significant industry events and milestones between September and December of last year. And so myself and the team at AFCAC have really had a lot to do, and it's been quite a hectic time. We had an opportunity to sort of refresh, reset, and reconnect with family over the holidays. And now we're back to start the work for the new year and to pursue our mandate.
Great. Now, probably let me just step back a bit, just in case we have some of our guests who probably do not know who exactly you are. So if you can briefly, just in about a minute, just tell us in summary, who is Adefunke, where are you coming from, and why AFCAC at this point in time?
Well, I mean, it's always a tricky one for someone to describe themselves, isn't it? It would have been better coming from you, Raphael, but I think I'll just quickly summarize and say, you know, I'm a simple girl, started my career as a practicing lawyer for 8 years, and then I became the company secretary and general counsel for a local airline in my home country, Nigeria, for a few more years after that. And then I joined IATA in different roles and was with IATA for 13 years up until August of 2022, where I left as regional director for aeropolitical affairs, external affairs, and sustainability for Africa. So that's it in a nutshell. So we don't take too much time on that, but you know, I'm sure that there's a profile that AFRAA can share with members of the public and participants if they so wish. And so Great. Coming into AFCAC, this is my first, if you like, intergovernmental role, having been in private sector and industry for the past almost 24 years of my working life. And it's been very, very interesting. Interesting in the sense that I am simply amazed at the sheer amount of structure that is in place when you are working with an intergovernmental organization. I mean, a lot of work is put in place to ensure that, you know, the right systems, the right structures, the right processes and policies are in place and are followed, because we're accountable not to ourselves, but to members. And we have to ensure that we do things the proper way. So it really has been a great eye-opener from that point of view. And I've had a lot to learn as well as we started the work.
Yeah, I can agree with you that there definitely is a lot to learn, especially it's much easier to transition from the government side to the private side than it is from the private side to the government side. So it's actually much more complicated, but I know you are very capable. I know your capacity, I know your ability to transition challenges, and I'm very positive that you will leave an indelible mark in AFCAC at the time you choose to leave AFCAC at the end of your term. But
thank you for the vote of confidence, Raphael. I just wanted to mention here that, of course, it's a team effort, it's a collective effort, and it's not the work that we're tasked with is not something that any one individual can achieve. And so I'm looking forward to collaborating with you know, with everyone that is as relevant on the work we need to do.
In fact, I can give you the assurance of AFRAA that you are in safe hands, and like our predecessors, we would continue to work with you and the team at AFCAC. You have a very solid team, a very focused team, and you just need to bring in the dynamism that is required, and then we can together move the needle to the next point. As I said in my intro, look, AFCAC is only an oversight body. AFCAC does not directly implement anything. You oversee and you help us to put things together and make things work. So there are a lot, whilst we expect you to open the doors, a lot depends on other players in this industry to make sure that we achieve the results that we all would want to see.
Absolutely.
But having said that, if I can just get back to what you bringing into AFCAC, can tell us briefly a sneak preview of your vision and your plans for AFCAC during the next couple of years.
Thank you, Raphael. Okay, having worked with AFCAC, even in my previous industry life, I had the great opportunity to collaborate in many different ways with AFCAC in terms of their different work programs for the continent of Africa on aviation. And from that experience, I realized that AFCAC really has a unique position, which is it is a continental body which is designed to help to coordinate and facilitate aviation in Africa. And so that uniqueness is something that is really, really exciting for me. The fact that we have the platform to reach all 54 states of Africa, in addition to the industry and the affiliate members of the air transport space, including tourism and trade, and of course, our partners and stakeholders. So that uniqueness is something that I've always found quite interesting and particularly exciting for me. Now, coming into AFCAC, realizing that a lot of work has been done in the past few years to ensure that the proper groundwork for AFCAC to really take flight to transform African aviation has been put in place. What I guess I could bring to the table is build on that work. One, with a clear focus on doing exactly what I've just said, which is to transform African aviation into a more robust air transport industry. And number two, to bring some dynamism in terms of specific actions and targets that we feel are transformational and that we feel will have the most impact. So it's really all about just looking at what has already been done from a slightly different lens and just prioritizing, focusing, and taking a targeted and needs-based approach to the work that we're going to do in AFCAC. I also think in terms of the vision, AFCAC has its own vision, and I don't think that vision should change. It's a really comprehensive and really powerful aspirational vision, which is to foster a safe, secure, cost-effective, environmentally friendly, resilient, and diverse air transport industry in Africa. That is all-encompassing, and that is really the mandate, in a sense, of what we are supposed to be doing. And then our mission is to do that through coordination, cooperation, harmonization, and implementation. And so the key change, I guess, from my previous, from successors who have done a really good job of bringing AFCAC to the stage that it's in, is really to focus on that issue of implementation. And that is really the main ethos of my vision for moving the needle forward for AFCAC.
Excellent. That is comprehensive. And especially that it is not digressing from the vision of AFCAC, main AFCAC, but it's actually dovetailing. Your personal vision is dovetailing into that of AFCAC's vision. All the that has been given to you by the board of AFCAC.
Thank you. That's appreciated.
Thank you. So now, with this vision, I'm sure you've got a comprehensive plan of actually engaging, especially you coming from an advocacy background. You've seen previous engagements of AFCAC and with industry, with stakeholders, and with governments. Do you think what was being done is adequate, and or you will need to recouch that and do it differently in terms of advocacy?
Okay, great. I mean, that's a really great question. And I remember during just an incident that happened during one of the dinners. I think it was the gala dinner at the just concluded AFRAA AGA that was held here in Dakar, which was a really great event. Again, thank you so much for the hospitality and for putting on a great show. But at that event, someone came up to me and said, you know, we don't really know who is AFCAC. And that really signified to me one of the issues that I thought about that I would bring to bear with the team in AFCAC, which is that we needed to bridge the gap between AFCAC as an intergovernmental organization, our states, and the business end of aviation, meaning the industry and the respective players. The person who asked me the question is an industry stakeholder and said, you know, we don't really know what AFCAC is and what AFCAC does. And so one of the things that we're focusing on internally at AFCAC is to, one, enhance the visibility of AFCAC as the specialized agency of the African Union. So we're not just a body that was set up by a group of people who thought, well, maybe this body should be the ones to coordinate the efforts of African aviation. It is actually a mandate from heads of state of the African Union that this body be set up to govern and coordinate and facilitate the affairs of civil aviation across the whole continent of Africa. So one, we are a specialized agency, and I think it's important for participants and our stakeholders to understand that. So in a sense, we're similar to the African Continental Free Trade Secretariat, which was recently set up in 2020. So that is another dynamic in terms of our raison d'etre. We are here to support the vision of the African Union for a better connected Africa and to ensure that safe and secure civil aviation industry. So that's the first issue in terms of bridging the gap. So enhancing our visibility, but also ensuring that we work closer with our partners. Now, AFCAC has always collaborated with industry and with partners and with stakeholders from all around, as I've mentioned before. And I know that I worked quite closely with AFCAC, wearing my previous hat for many, many years. What we would like to do is to make this quite targeted, because what we do as AFCAC is to coordinate the activities of states, which will then support the business end of aviation. And so it's important for us to have alignment and synergy between the two sides. And in fact, not to see it as two sides at all, but to see it as one piece of a wider socio-economic puzzle for Africa. And aviation, as we know, is a fundamental and existential catalyst for Africa. I've said this on several occasions. It's something I firmly believe. Until we're able to connect the continent better through a safe, secure, cost-efficient, environmentally friendly, resilient aviation system, Africa's socioeconomic and developmental prospects will remain stunted as it is today. And so we really have, beyond just this coordinating role, it's really kind of a fundamental role that we play here to try to unlock this potential. So these are some of the areas that we need to focus on, but not just to enhance the advocacy and visibility of AFCAC, but also of our member states. Our member states are doing great things, making great strides in aviation. Our industry is making great strides in aviation. We had so many examples. We have countries in Africa who pioneer safety rankings globally, and who are really on top of the chart. We have airlines who are doing pioneering initiatives, particularly seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've got to be able to showcase and also encourage a lot more of what is going on, and that dynamism and change and innovation and creativity across Africa. And that is one of the things that we would really like to do and focus our efforts on this year and beyond.
Oh, that's a handful, Funke. Your job is really cut out for you, and I'm very hopeful that we would garner all the support to be able to bring this about. You know, and talking particularly about visibility and making sure that people know who AFCAC is. The one thing that I also think is we do work hard, achieve a lot of results, and we assume that our results are visible enough to be seen. So we don't always tend to collate these things into a format that is readily available. And for instance, if I step back to Yamoussoukro, you talk to many people, they say Yamoussoukro is a disaster. Nothing was achieved. But really, is that true? No, so much was achieved under Yamoussoukro. We didn't have a fully liberalized market, but so much was achieved. But unfortunately, where can you find these achievements of Yamoussoukro quantified? It's quite difficult. You find bits and pieces here and there. You find us having to go full force defending where we should actually not be defending, you know. So I'm hoping that one of the things that probably from my perspective and knowing your background coming from IATA, one of the things that is to showcase the little steps that you are moving on a day-by-day basis, putting that together and making it out there. That way, people are able to see and track what you are doing and are able to get fulfillment. It facilitates the visibility we're talking about. And I think it would be a good thing if you can do that.
Okay, I can just quickly speak to that, Raphael. I mean, absolutely right. So one of the things we're doing, just practical issues, is that we've done a refresh of our website. I'm sure that those who have been going to it, and we're trying to drive traffic to it, and all of the participants, please make sure you visit our website. We've done a refresh of it, but we're actually going to do a complete revamp of the website, and that process is ongoing. But what we're also doing is that we try to showcase through our website and social media platforms, which have now been reactivated and re-energized, the activities that AFCAC is doing, especially that, you know, and leading to impactful results on a weekly basis. So we did that, you know, from September to December. Now we have started just this week. In fact, yesterday, if you checked on social media, we have now started a weekly spotlight that we're going to be doing for every state in Africa. So every week, we're going to showcase the states in terms of their civil aviation achievements. We'll do an interview with the Civil Aviation Director General, as well as, you know, just showcasing some of the routes that go to and from that country and some interesting facts and figures about each country. So this is something that is new and is interesting and is meant to be engaging, to engage not just our civil aviation community, but the wider community at large. And so please follow our social media platforms on LinkedIn and on Twitter, as well as visit our website periodically. Every week, we have something new for you.
Great. Oh, that's good. I didn't know you had something in the works already. I'll check it out from your website immediately after this, just to see what it is. And if I have any comments, I'll bring them to your attention as well. But let's see. Now, I have mentioned twice already that the work AFCAC is doing has to be, if results are to be shown, it has to be done collaboratively with other stakeholders in this industry. Now, your predecessors have done an awesome job working with the stakeholders who are so many and so varied in this industry. Now, some of these stakeholders are direct, but some of them are also indirect, but they all impact our industry. I don't know, going forward, how do you intend to continue with this engagement of stakeholders?
Oh, wow. You know, it's such an important question and such an important point. As you rightly say, you know, AFCAC on its own is a small organization. We are made up of a team of amazing professionals, but with limited capacity to do just because of our number and, you know, our reach. And therefore, that collaboration is so fundamental. And in fact, it is in our constitution that we cooperate and collaborate with stakeholders. But what are we doing differently about that? The first is that we've developed a stakeholder map. And you'll be amazed at just how many stakeholders and that we have to engage with. From our member states to our regional economic communities, to our principal, the African Union, to the different agencies of the African Union, to the United Nations Economic Commission, to taking the industry to yourselves, AFRAA, to IATA, to ASA, to ACI, the airports, to CANZO, to so many different stakeholders, to international partners, to ICAO, to, and name, it goes on and on. So we actually mapped out who our respective stakeholders are, and that map helped us to be able to, again, target our approach with all of our stakeholders to ensure that we are collaborating to get the most value and mutual benefit for each stakeholder in terms of the engagements that we have. And so, for example, with AFRAA, one of the things that we would like to partner or will be partnering with you on going forward is that you support us on our drive to increase fifth freedom penetration in Africa, which is one of our milestones for SAATM implementation. Now, we need you to do that because while the states may sign the agreements, we need the airlines to operate the routes. We need those routes to be developed. We need them to be flown. We need, you know, all of that kind of support. So we need yourself, we need IATA, we need ASA, we need the entire industry made up of all of the industry to support that initiative in that way. And so we want to be targeted by industry and by stakeholder to say, this is where we think that you can support us. In this strategic area, this is what we would like for you to support us with and be specific about it.
Good.
We are also working on joint action plans by stakeholder. So it's quite a lot. AFCAC has quite a number of MOUs and documents that it has signed with many stakeholders, both within Africa and internationally over the years. And again, we're reviewing this. So this work has been on for the past couple of months to really look at, you know, the areas where we can streamline and also where we can be more targeted and face things from a needs-based approach.
You know, in Africa, there's always a concern about that we work together, achieve results, and one person takes credit and not shared. I know from your past experiences that is not part of you. Credit goes where it is due. You are in a new setup. Your predecessors have done very well by disseminating what each one has done. And a classic example is the JPAP, the Joint Prioritized Action Plan, where a number of stakeholders are working together. But at any point in time, they would highlight the specific roles of each stakeholder and what they have been able to do in their respective area, so that it doesn't look like it's just AFCAC driving it. Do you see such initiatives as motivating enough and would want to continue them so that we can get a lot more stakeholders willing to partner and support initiatives that AFCAC will launch.
Absolutely. So that we definitely will be continuing with that. And in fact, we have our next JPAP already set, and the date is fixed for the 9th and 10th of February. We'll be sending out the invitations to the relevant invitees. For those participants who don't know what a JPAP is, it is the Joint Prioritized Action Plan, where we have an annual meeting to look at the various elements of the single African air transport market. And I think maybe this is a great opportunity to dovetail into the SAATM, given the fact that, you know, our time is moving. But just to assure yourself and all of our participants and stakeholders that we certainly will continue to collaborate effectively and, of course, to give credit wherever it is due.
So yeah, I think it's important at this point. Let's just move straight into SAATM and just deal with it as we just touch on JPAP. And my first question to you would be, you came and met this elephant in the room, SAATM. And just 2 days ago, I was thinking about how old is SAATM, and I realized we've just stepped into year number 5 since SAATM was launched in 2018. So this is the 5th year we just beginning. And so gradually time is moving on. I am not too sure from where you sit, whether you see the glass as half full or half empty, and how do you justify?
Well, so let's start with the elephant. You know, I have a saying about elephants, which I picked up from some African saying somewhere, that no matter how big the elephant is, it can be eaten. And how do you eat an elephant? It's a piece at a time. And so rather than the elephant staying in the room in that one big piece and taking up space and not, you know, things not moving, or the elephant, you know, changing color into white and so on and so forth, the same elephant, we break it down. So there's this so-called, you know, SAATM elephant or YD Yamoussoukro elephant. And let me just speak to Yamoussoukro for a second. It is such a pioneering initiative that was initiated, you know, first in 1988, okay, by the heads of state of Africa. Why did they do that? And I think that really should be our guiding principle as I take us through the journey and what we're going to be doing forward. Why did the presidents think that an agreement to form a Pan-African domestic air transport market was relevant or necessary? It is because they understood back then that a better connected Africa was essential. And because of the sheer size of the continent, Africa would be better served with connections by air, in addition to the other multimodal forms of transportation. They understood this, understanding that connectivity leads to productivity, leads to trade, leads to development, leads to investment, leads to so many benefits. They got it. So it was really a forerunner of its time. Now, it is, you know, however many years old it is, we don't, you know, I'm not focusing on that. What I'd like to focus on is what has happened in that time. So let's first take a stock taking and take a little step back. What has happened? What is Yamoussoukro decision? Yamoussoukro decision simply is a framework agreement that facilitates air transport liberalization across Africa on the basis of fifth freedom, meaning that passengers and cargo can move from one city to another city and then another city and back. That is the basis, okay? So to foster better connections. So has YD been implemented at all? Yes, it has. The issue is that it has not been implemented as deeply as it should be to really foster those connections. And let me just share a few numbers and details with you. How connected is Africa by air? Today, you may surprise you to know that only about 35% of African cities are connected by air. 35%. I'd like us to think about how much investment, money, and time is spent on road networks and on rail networks across Africa. And yet, till date, since we started, the Africa project, if you like. We still don't have a highway from Cairo to Cape Town. We still don't have a railway from Dakar to Nairobi. Yet we have good air connections, albeit from city to city, across majority of the continent of Africa. So to an extent, we have seen the Yamoussoukro decision, at least in terms of air services, opening up. What we want, though, is to deepen this, and that is where our starting point is in AFCAC for this triennium. We are taking a baseline based on the continental study that was commissioned by AU, done by IATA in 2021, which showed that only 14.5% of fifth freedom routes exist in Africa using 2019 figures. Only 14.5%. Let us round it up to 15%. And so what does that mean? It means that most of the remainder of the 85% is point-to-point traffic. So yes, there's connectivity, quite all right, but it's from city to city. So our focus, therefore, with AFCAC on SAATM is to increase the fifth freedom, or to support the increase of the fifth freedom route penetration across Africa, or from that 15% to 30% by 2025. So now we are putting smart targets to our work. Our focus is to have a clear direction on SAATM, and also to have a clear target that we want to achieve, and also to have a time frame. Now we go to the how. How do we do this? Of course, working in collaboration with all of you. We have put together a roadmap on SAATM. And we did a launch of an initiative on the 14th of November, which is the anniversary of the Yamoussoukro decision, which is the SAATM pilot implementation project. Remember that elephant and eating it a piece of at a time? Well, that's what the SAATM PIP is supposed to do. So we have this grand idea of a fully liberalized market in Africa. Can we liberalize all 54 countries by air at the same time, at the same pace, in the same way? No. And so the idea of the SAATM is to really take the countries that have indicated and shown willingness to liberalize their markets and are keen to do so, to get them into a committed group of countries that can actually do that. And then to go a step further and batch the wider group of those countries who are ready, who are willing, who are eligible to go into full implementation mode, to batch them along some parameters. Let's take language as an example. If we take Mozambique, Angola, and Cape Verde or Equatorial Guinea, these are three countries that have language as a commonality. That means they also have trade as a commonality because of their language. They also have tourism as a commonality because of their language. But do you have services between Mozambique, Angola, and Equatorial Guinea or Cape Verde? No, not that I'm aware of. So why not try to see how we can facilitate with the states, with the countries, with the airlines, with the trade development bodies, with tourism and so on, the development of these routes. What we're trying to introduce with the SAATM PIP and the piecemeal approach of it is to really try to interrogate this from not just a process and institutional approach, but also a business approach. Now, today, I want to give an example of why it's important for us to look at things this way. Today, we have a route between Dakar and Kigali. That route is operated by one of our major carriers. They do a fifth freedom operation from Dakar, stopping in Bamako, from Bamako to their base in Addis Ababa. So that's already a fifth freedom route. And then from there, they go further down to Kigali. So in order to get to Kigali from Dakar, it's taking 18 to 20 hours of flying and transit time in total. Can we not find a route between Kigali and Dakar using West Africa rather than East? Because we're going from the westernmost point in Africa first to the easternmost point to come back down southeast. So these are some of the things we've got to consider. How can we make fifth freedom penetration attractive? How can we make it sustainable? And how can we make it more user-friendly and convenient for the ultimate beneficiary, who is the customer, the flying public, the people who use it? How can we make it affordable? These are the elements that we want to address on a piecemeal approach. So we go country by country. Let all of these countries sign an agreement, or the BASA, the air service agreement. Before, we've been doing bilaterals. The YD is a multilateral framework. So in that wise, it is again a pioneer, a forerunner of its time. It's not, you're not supposed to keep signing agreements. However, we still are in that mode where we continue to sign those agreements, because that is the legal instrument that states no, the bilateral air service agreements. But what have we done at AFCAC? We've taken the BASAs and we've developed a template that conforms with the critical elements of the Yamoussoukro decision that speak to market liberalization, which are the Articles 2 to 6. We've also looked at best practices in terms of air service agreements from different countries in Africa that have the most compliant air service agreements with YD. We've looked at what is being done at regional economic commission level. And we've also looked at what is being done by the industry in terms of best practice provisions. We put all of that together into a template, and we've shared this with states. Most recently at the just concluded ICANN, the ICAO Air Navigation Service Agreements conference, where we had a workshop for African states and invited guests to come and hear about this new approach of the SAATM PIP, and then to use that template to negotiate with themselves. And guess what happened? We had a good success. 16 states negotiated new or updated air service agreements, 16 African states using this YD compliant template. So in terms of facilitating the access for the industry, that is there already, and we've started that process. And it's not something we will stop and do only at an ICANN. We'll do it on a periodic level as we do our roadshows and our campaigns. But then we now go to the next stage. I mean, there's several next stages, right? So making sure that safety remains a priority, because safety is the #1 priority in aviation. So monitoring, continue to support and monitor, safety, compliance levels, security, compliance levels, the air transport issues, affordability being a key challenge. How can we reduce the cost for the flying public? And then we go to the industry element, these routes that we want, which cannot be operated by AFCAC or even independently by the state by just signing a document. How can AFRAA, IATA, and ASA support us to get this going? What are the conversations that are being had through your association with your airlines in terms of encouraging them to cooperate and to really look at this new group of countries and see, okay, what routes can we develop? And just to give an example, again, during the AGA of AFRAA, we heard from, I think, one of the players that most of their business is done through interlining. Interlining is just to cooperate, a metal neutral cooperation between airlines or across a network of airlines. If we had more interlining in Africa, I'll have you know that our ability to service these fifth freedom routes that rights have been granted to would increase exponentially. I remember that there was a figure somewhere saying that interlining can increase the penetration of air transport in Africa by up to 30%. So if that is the case, then what are the airlines? How can they support us? Because we're working together to try to do this. And so when I hear, oh, Yamoussoukro is a disaster, or Yamoussoukro is not working, and even, in some cases, oh, AFCAC is taking so long. Well, first of all, A lot of work has been done to lay the foundation, but the working has to be together. And so SAATM implementation is everybody's business. It is our job to ensure that we can get the institutional framework in place, to ensure that we have the right initiative to move the needle forward, and to ensure that we can secure the rights and the market access. But it's everyone's responsibility to make it happen, and everyone has got to chip in as well. Same goes for our partners in tourism, same goes for our partners in trade.
Now the question is, as multi-sectoral as it is, who leads the charge with the engagements with all the stakeholders? Is it
Okay.
AFCAC? So we're looking forward to AFCAC showing the way, and the rest will fall in line. Personally, from the airlines perspective, my view has always been that airlines will fly where opportunity is, where they think they will make money and not lose money. And so, like, as you rightly say, the opening up of the market is not just all about fifth freedom, but it's also about the other things that facilitate movements. So you cannot say, okay, we have fifth freedom when we still need visas across each other's countries, and the rates of the fee for visa is more than the airfare. We would still not travel. We cannot say we want to have this connectivity, fifth freedom exists when our borders are still closed to trade. So whilst AFCAC is doing its bit to ensure that we have air connectivity improved and without restrictions, we would appreciate if the AU through the other agencies also ensure that we have either visa-free, visa on arrival regimes across Africa. Then it helps. Then we can also ensure that we have alignment of custom duties, so that as people try to trade across borders, it is much easier. I know what to expect when I ship goods into the neighboring country, rather than I just get in there with my goods and I slap with a duty that does not make sense, and I cannot move my goods back. So it's a multifaceted approach. So we would continue to work with AFCAC and ensure that we put all the measures in place, but we would appeal to the AFCFTA and I don't know which body actually handles.
There's a unit. It's called the unit for free movement of people, and goods. So yeah. Actually, it's such a fundamental point, because even if you have signed all the agreements in the world and people are doing fifth freedom, if you don't have access, in terms of your ability to actually enter the country or to move your goods into the country and out of it, then what is the point? And we've actually been having a conversation with AU about this, that now it's time to activate the third pillar of the Agenda 2063, which is the free movement protocol. We talk about it a lot, but we haven't actually engaged on that issue. I, as an African, I need visas, apart from ECOWAS, which is my regional economic community, I need visas to almost every other country in Africa. And the process is not easy. So I had to, send my passport, and it takes time. And even the e-visa processes take time. And after you've gone through them, you get a rejection, even though you have meetings and you have a clear reason to be in the country and so on. But it shouldn't be like that. We are supposed to facilitate the movement of people and goods. And so this unit needs to be activated. And we're actually currently in engagement with the AU on that. We're going to be working on it. But I just want to make a quick final point on the SAATM.
At this point, let me go.
Yes, okay. I saw a message popping in.
Well.
Yes, I saw a message popping in, and I just want to address it quickly. So in terms of our activities, starting from this year, we will be doing, first and foremost, we will be doing our joint prioritized action plan, which is in February, where we have the working level stakeholders who will come together and look at the different pillars under SAATM to work on safety, security, advocacy, regulations, environment, and financing. Then at the AU Africa Heads of States Summit that's coming up, we are working and engaging with the AU to secure a side meeting of the presidents of these SAATM PIP states, there are 19 of them now, to get them all together to say, this is what we need you, the presidents, to support this initiative and engage amongst yourselves so that the political directives are coming down the line and are clear. We'll also be given a report of the 5-year post-launch of SAATM, as you rightly mentioned earlier, through the champion president of SAATM, the president of Togo, during the AU Heads of State Summit. That is also raising accountability levels, not just for us as AFCAC, but also for the member states. Then following that, we will have a ministerial meeting, a working group to go into these different areas, addressing those non-physical barriers that we've talked about, where we bring together again the ministers across the SAATM PIP states and other states who join us. And then we start a roadshow. So we're going to do a roadshow by regional economic community, as well as by SAATM PIP country groupings. So it's going to be quite a hectic year for us, but we are confident that working together with our collaborators and all of the stakeholders in our map and on the SAATM initiative specifically, we'll be able to achieve it. So over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Now, I just go to our Q&A and then bring up a few of the questions that have been lined up that we've covered so far. One of them by Victoria Moore is saying that one of the African countries is opting to delay its participation in SAATM by 5 years. Now, what can Africa do about that? Or it's their sovereign, they can do what they want, and that's it.
Okay, so so it's a good point you raised. There is a sovereign right of states to make a decision on what not to do, but we are not going to rest on that. So AFCAC is going to encourage and work together with all states to, one, showcase the benefit and the WYSIWYG for that state. The WYSIWYG is what is in it for me. Why should I go ahead and implement SAATM? Why is it to my benefit and to the benefit of my people? So we do that and encourage them in terms of what is necessary. Can we compel? Unfortunately, the structure of the AU and a specialized agency like AFCAC makes it difficult to be able to compel through penalties and enforcement. But we do have a dispute settlement mechanism that allows certain sanctions to be put in place. The dispute settlement mechanism was adopted by the AU last year and will be activated in this year. And so as we proceed, we will begin to see, what powers of persuasion we are at our disposal, both at AU and AFCAC level, to be able to convince states to move forward. The other thing I want to add beyond the states is that we have also initiated something new under the SAATM PIP, which is to designate what we call SAATM ambassadors. And these ambassadors are people that have proven their commitment to the SAATM ideal and also in industry. So they are not, in government. Either they've worked in government before or worked in both government and private sector, but mainly from an industry perspective, so that we begin to, in all the work that we're doing, incorporate the business imperatives into our initiatives. And that's really something. So they will help to amplify our messaging, but also to help to activate the business end of things.
Okay, I think you've also then dealt with the other question, which was by Moses Ungwana, which was actually to the fact that it would appear that the vision of AFCAC is quite similar to the purpose for establishing AFCAC as an organization. in which case AFCAC role is more persuasive rather than compulsion. In that case, how do you get governments to actually implement SAATM if they are not willing to do so? I think you've covered that as well.
Yes, the political track, as well as our continued advocacy on the benefits. I think that's the way to go. In terms of the institutional aspect, if we take the example of Europe, they have, a European Court of Justice, they have institutional frameworks that can actually compel compliance. But we are still almost at that stage. We're not there yet. So we will use the other tools at our disposal.
Yeah. Sege Gatoi is saying that Africa air transport currently is about 3% of global air transport volume. Now, he read somewhere that the plan is to increase this to 30% by 2040. And his question is, how?
It's a very good question. So again, taking all the pieces together, I think 30%, I'm not sure where that figure comes from, but it is, I'm sure you'll agree, it is actually really, really, really ambitious. I think 10% increase is something that by 2040, I think we can collectively strive towards under the umbrella of the SAATM initiative and trying to really deepen the penetration of air connectivity across Africa. I think that's really important. And I think one point to note for many African states and airlines is that when we're tracking this percentages of the Africa's contribution of global international traffic. International traffic is flying from Dakar to Bamako because it's from one city in one country to another city in another. And so if we're to increase intra-African connectivity, we would be increasing that number. And so the SAATM initiative is really, really critical for us to do that. The other thing that I want to highlight finally is that during the COVID-19, when borders were closed all around the world, yes, it's true that this was not our making, it was not our choice. Borders were closed for the reasons that were happening at that time. But if you took a view of flights that were happening over all of the regions of the world, we saw that flights were still going on quite significantly in North America, mainly because of the domestic markets of the US. We saw that flights were going on quite significantly in Europe as well, mainly because of their own domestic European markets. And Africa and most of the rest was closed, hardly any flights over Africa. That should have been the moment when we as Africans seized the opportunity and said, it is our chance to really deepen our connections with each other. And that is what we're going to propel forward to ensure that we don't, have the same challenges should another black swan event or another pandemic happen again, that Africa is better prepared and better connected to be able to address its own continental issues.
Thank you. We have a number of questions, but time is really not on our side. I cannot let you go without asking you a question on gender diversity. Unfortunately, we might have to defer the one on safety and security to another session. But on gender diversity, I think on this platform, AFRAA is doing very well. Last year, we had 3 ladies were interviewed on this platform. And this year, we are starting off with a lady. So in terms of the IATA yardstick for 25 by 2025, I think we met that last year. This year, SkyConnect will do well probably to better that record. But AFCAC also has been doing very well. I come to AFCAC Secretariat and I think the mix of genders in AFCAC is very, very encouraging. Now, how can we replicate this across the industry and what would it take?
Thank you so much. You know that this is a matter that is dear to my heart. I believe, according to what Michelle Obama said, that half of the world's population are women, and when you empower that half, you empower the world. And I think that it's really important for us to bear this in mind, particularly as we want to grow and transform the African civil aviation industry. So what are we doing at AFCAC? we have established a Women in Aviation and Youth platform. And we are just set up a steering group. Our first meeting will be held on Thursday, actually, of this year. We initiated the steering committee, the steering group late last year, made up of women across the industry, both from government, meaning CAAs, but from other agencies as well, airports, air navigation, airlines, and we're just pulling this group together to come up with workable initiatives that can really see a deepening of women and gender diversity across the industry. So watch this space. You'll be hearing more about it, and we'll tell you more on that. And finally, I cannot stop without talking about safety, which is the top priority. We are 100% focused on safety and security, as we'll continue to work on that with states and in collaboration with all the different partners, ICAO, the REX, and of course the industry, to improve the safety levels across Africa. And we're taking this from a targeted approach, going, looking at each state to ensure that we support them to achieve these objectives. So thank you very much. I think we're bang on the dot of 12.
Excellent. We right dead on time, and unfortunately, my apologies to Akite, Oyono, Gladys, Victoria Moore for a number of questions, and Noel Ngala and Sege Gatoyo for your questions, which unfortunately we could not answer on this platform. My technical team will collect these questions and send them to the SG of AFCAC, who would respond to them and send them to you, to send you the responses directly. Very sorry, and I'm very grateful that we all made time to be on this platform. On behalf of all of us who have gathered here, to over 106 of us at the peak, I would want to take this opportunity to thank Madam Adeyemi Adefunke, the Secretary General of AFCAC, for making time to be on SkyConnect. And to all of you who have made time to participate in it, we thank you for your time and for your questions and active participation. We look forward to having you again next month and the similar time, and as we continue with the dialogue on transforming African air transport. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Raphael, and thank you to all the participants. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for the brilliant moderation, Raphael. Excellent.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.